Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the only performance ever of Why Did the Chicken? Would you please welcome to the stage your host, Steve Cross! Hello chicken fans, first of all let's work out who we've got here. Give me a cheer if you're primarily a fan of humanity. Yes! You're right to be hesitant, because you know what the second option is going to be. Give me a cheer if you're primarily a fan of chickens! Absolutely. My name's Steve Cross. Hello. My job for this gig is to statistically prove that chickens are not only better than humans, they are better than every other animal in the entire world. I don't think there'll be any problems here. So this is fun. We're at the Hen and Chickens, the most on-brand theatre in the world. I think I've upset someone. Are you alright, whoever that was? Are you okay? That's okay, good. So I think it's the most on-brand theatre in the world, which I'm very excited about. But I'm also aware that it's quite a small theatre, and I think I recognise about 50% of you. So by a little bit more cheering, can I have a cheer if you professionally work in any way on the relationship between humans and chickens? Yes, good. That means most of the jokes that I'm about to make at people's expense, those people are here. It's always uplifting as an MC to know that that's going to happen. Can you give me a cheer if you've ever been to one of my gigs before? It's the other half. Very high-pitched other half, I thought, which tells you a lot about the people who come to my gigs. Right, so I should introduce myself. My name is Steve Cross. I am, as far as I know, the only comedian in residence on a university research project in the country. I know, thank you. But which makes me either the best comedian in the country or the comedian who has managed to find the biggest suckers in the country. So my job as a comedian in residence, which many of you will have seen written up in the Times Higher Education magazine this week. The 5 people that read it will have seen. Don't put that in the video. That's good. So we've got the various video cameras shooting. This is the main one. So this is the one that when I say something really terrible and possibly libelous, I will look at and go, don't put that. Don't be rude about Times Higher Ed. We wrote it up in Times Higher Ed because basically I want every other university researcher in the country to look at that and go, why haven't we got a comedian in residence? Do you know any comedians? No, neither do I. Oh well, we'll have to get him out of the article then. And then I can make some money. So what being a comedian in residence involves? First of all, I want you to get an idea of the size of the research project that we're dealing with, the Chicken Project, right? We have researchers from, I think, 5 different universities doing 7 different types of research. Like they've got 7 totally different ways of thinking and talking, and I have to navigate between all of them. I spent a day basically having PhD level supervisions from some of the finest minds in Britain, like no holds barred. If they were just going to pile into complex grammar, we were there. I was lost. I was trying to sum it up at the end of the day. I was talking to one of my friends. I was like, well, how do I describe a project with people doing 7 different types of research covering 8,000 years of history? From 5 different universities, and they went, oh, it's a clusterfuck. Thank you. I did also consider clustercluck, but I found it works better if you keep the swear word in. I've been doing, because part of being a comedian in residence is I've been doing chicken-based material all over the country for the past 2 months, and I've discovered a lot about the British public. Most of all, I've discovered a lot about chickens. So, the thesis I'm going to put before you is that everything humans need is best done with chickens. Right? So if you look at, those of you who work in like human sciences will know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a very famous list of what humans need. And I'll summarise it. We need to eat, we need to have food, we need to have friends, we need companionship, we need competition, we need something to strive for, we need sport, we need creativity, we need art, we need religion and gods that we can hold on to, and we need to scare the German filmmaker Werner Herzog. Those are the 6 main things that humans need. And every single one of them is best done with chickens. Let's take eating. 1, I don't know if you know this, you can eat chicken. It's radical news to everybody. Chicken is now the single biggest source of animal protein in the UK. We eat more chickens than everything else put together. Which would have been quite weird when chickens first came to Britain. Because when chickens first came to Britain, we didn't eat them. Like, we couldn't work out that they were food. Because food is either a plant and doesn't move, or it's a pig or a cow and it barely moves. Whereas a chicken, you go, I'm going to eat your chicken, and you walk towards it and it goes, and what the fuck do you do with that? The answer is, you go, it's behaving like that because God said that we can't eat it. So Caesar came to Britain 55 BC, and one of the things he wrote was, people in Britain don't eat chickens. For some weird, he also wrote that the most civilised people in Britain were those that live in Kent. A lot has changed since 55 BC in a number of ways. But yeah, so the Romans then taught everyone to eat chickens. But now we eat chickens, we eat chickens' eggs all the time. So you can eat chickens. I'm going to talk a lot more about eating chickens in part 2, because I'm a big fan. You can make friends with chickens, I don't know, by cheering who has a pet. Oh. What kind of pet do you have?
Chickens.
A pet chickens?
Yeah.
Amazing. They're doing a whole research study into people like you now. What? This is off-brand now. What are your chickens called?
The names?
Yeah.
Air Force One.
Oh! Those who didn't hear, that's Air Force One.
Sweetie.
Sweetie.
Bowie after David Bowie.
Bowie after David Bowie, that's good. Do some of your friends pronounce it Bowie and then you hate those friends? Good. Okay.
And Minaj after Nicki Minaj.
Minaj after Nicki Minaj, that's brilliant. Because well, one of the things in this country is people who get chickens to be their friends, they all call them 1930s women's names, like Tilly and Dottie and Ava Brown, and things like that. Because it's all this like nostalgia thing that they really miss chickens. So chickens can be your friends. Chickens are much better pets than other animals. Like if you think about the common animals people have, you've got a cat, so basically an evil animal that you invite into your house. And then it treats you like a dominatrix. It spends all of its time going, slave, work for my attention, work for my attention, work for my... You're not paying me enough attention. Show me how much you love me. They're awkward. Chickens don't do that. Chickens will come over and they'll go, I'm hungry, when they're hungry. And then other than that, they're like, I got chicken shit to do. Fuck off. And they're just pecking all over the place. They're better, so you would think, oh, they're like dogs. Dogs have got dog things they can get on with. The trouble with the dog is, I don't know if any of you have dogs, if you leave them alone for 5 minutes, they'll contrive to die somehow. They'll get their head stuck in or something. They're just, they're too inquisitive and not in a clever way. So chickens, much better companions than dogs. And also, the things that come out of dogs and cats' bums, you can't eat. That's a vital difference from chickens, and another reason why chickens are better friends. Let's move on. Chickens are very important. So in this country, right, men, first of all, give me a cheer if you are the proud owner of a cock. That's good. Silence. Give me a cheer if you've got one, but you're not really that proud of it because you know where it's been. So I've been launching into that joke around the country, like not in the context of chicken material, just literally going on stage and going, give me a cheer with the proud owner of a cock. And people are like, yes! Finally stag do material! And then as I descend into 10 minutes about the cultures of cockfighting, you can hear British audiences get more and more like, no. By the way, those of you who need clarification, cockfighting is not this. It's not like bullfighting, it's not one person versus a chicken. That's a short, you've got your little red cape which you hold there, it runs towards you. Cockfight over. Wow, we get through a lot of these fighting cocks, don't we? Yes, and a lot of footwear. Cockfighting is if you look back through human history, it's one of the main things we use chicken for. In Britain, we're not eating chickens when Caesar gets here, but we are using them for sport, because they're brilliant. And in places where there still is cockfighting, they are the best treated chickens in the whole world. I'm going to give you some idea of what it's like to be a male chicken, depending on the kind of chicken you are, right? So if you're a male chicken and you're bred to be eaten, you're born, you spend about a month growing ridiculously quickly. You're like a giant steroidal teenager, then you're just killed and eaten. You've lived a month, you're eaten. If you're a male in the egg-laying industry, this is your entire life. This is where English audiences, man, you can't deal with your dinner. This is a male being born into the egg-laying industry. Peck, 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 crack, peep, peep, peep. Are you my mum? That's it, that's their entire life. What happens is the chicks come down a conveyor belt, someone picks them up, they have to turn them over to sex them. You can't tell from the haircut whether they're male or female. Female ones, they go off and lay eggs for 2 years, then be tired, they're so tired that you die. Male ones, they go, male one, that's a chipper, by the way. Germany's just made that illegal, so suddenly they've got loads of male chicks they don't know what to do with, whereas we make chick powder. Anyway, so don't be a male chick in egg laying or the meat eating industry. If you want to be a male chicken, be a fucking fighting cock, because you will be looked after like a Premier League footballer. You're fed the best things, your plumage is always absolutely perfect. Admittedly, you have to fight another chicken to the death every now and then. It's better than the chipper, much better than the chipper. So yeah, we can use them for fighting. Art, right, chickens are art. Do you agree? No, of course. You don't agree because I haven't given you the evidence yet. No, okay. So, the thing about chickens is when we said, oh, we should stop using them for fighting, that's a bit barbaric. And someone went, what about the chipper? No, ignore it. It's fighting that's barbaric. Suddenly we had loads of people who know loads about breeding chickens and they've got no work to do. So they thought, fuck it, we're going to make art. We're going to make chicken art. We're going to breed the most incredible chickens in the world. And this is, again, right, if you're not going to be a fighting chicken and you want a brilliant life, be a fancy chicken. I'm going to show you a fancy chicken. This is a fancy chicken that belongs to a member of the Chicken Project. It is a Buff Orpington, right? Some facts you need to know about Buff Orpingtons. One, so this is Pete Smith's chicken. Fact one, these are the royal chickens. The Queen Mother had a stable of Buff Orpingtons and Prince Charles has inherited it. Right, they're amazing, they're royal chickens. What you're looking at there, they're nearly all feathers. If you plucked all of this out, there's like a scrawny little chicken inside with no good meat on it and it lays crap eggs, right? They're just ornamental chickens and they're absolutely beautiful. If you're looking at them and going, they seem very fluffy, very fluffy, does that cause problems with their lives? The answer is yes, it does. So the biggest problem it causes is how do they have sex? Right? Imagine you were trying to have sex, but both of you have a beanbag stapled to the front of you and a beanbag stapled to the back. You're just banging the beanbags together. Just this kind of noise. There's not going to be any baby humans if you do that. So this is an even fluffier chicken. This is called a Pekin chicken. What I love about Pekin chickens is in your head, chickens are like feathers, legs, feet. These guys are feathers, more feathers, feathers growing out of their feet. They are so warm. But if you want to mate them, what you have to do is basically get a big pair of scissors and take all the feathers off the back. Like this. You did all sign up for Gaping Chicken Cloaca as part of this gig, didn't you? So yeah, you can see here the very careful precision implements used to do the work. And you have to change. Anyway, right, that was a fluffy chicken diversion. Let's have a look at some more Buff Orpingtons. These are loaded Buff Orpingtons. Very good, aren't they? Beautiful, beautiful. Humans have put so much work into making these beautiful for no reason. This one, I don't know if you can see, Henley and District Agricultural Association champion. This is a champion chicken. Look how happy it is. This one, National Championship Show, first prize. So I was talking about these Buff Orpingtons and I met all the researchers. And I went to talk to Alison, who is also a researcher, and she said, oh, I'm working on Buff Orpingtons as well. I said, oh, that's really interesting. She said, would you like to see a picture of my Buff Orpington? I went, yeah, I would love to see a picture. I've become slightly obsessed with these fluffy golden balls. Can you show me a picture of your Buff Orpington? She went, here you go. Okay, so I'm going to give this context. Alison is working on a system for measuring the bones of chickens so that you can prove that they're chickens. And in order to do this, she has to have a really wide sample size. Because chickens go from kind of this big, a Jersey giant, which is like, they grow up to about 19 pounds. Essentially, they are the velociraptors from Jurassic World, covered in fluff. Down to about this big. And they're weird. Like, chickens are really... So when you find a bone, it's very hard to go, this is a chicken bone, unless it's in Holloway Road on Saturday at 2 a.m, in which case it's definitely a chicken bone. So she's measuring bones, and in order to do this, she has to have a whole load of different chickens and know that, you know, it's not a bone that's come out of a box from 50 years ago. It has to be, I have the chicken, it's definitely a Buff Orpington. So she has to boil them all down, which means that, in her own words, my lab smells like chicken soup all the time. And it was very convenient, actually, because I found out that there was actually a noodle research group working next door, and together they could do some amazing things. Anyway, we'll come on to that. I've got a science section in the second half. We're flying along. We've done art. Right, well, I'm going to hold at art, and then we'll come back to the rest of it. So the main thing tonight is that I've got a load of experts to introduce to you who are going to they're going to tell you their funny stories about chickens. So we've got Kate Humble off of the telly, who's like countryside animal expert. We've got Martin Ostick from University College London, who is an expert. And then Danny Lobel, who is an amazing comedian who also keeps chickens. So he's got this like insight into their weird lives that none of the rest of us have got. So and there'll be a break in the middle and all sorts of things. So I'm going to crack on with introducing people. Do you want to meet some people? Yay! Okay, that was good enthusiasm from over here, the group that previously identified themselves as having been to my gigs. And they know the rules. They're like, you better cheer loud or Steve's going to beat you all up. Okay, good, right, we'll do a little bit of clapping and cheering practice then. I want you to imagine that you die and you are reincarnated, because it turns out Hinduism was right. And you're reincarnated and they're like, we're going to send you back as a male chicken, right? And what we're doing here is we're going for the amount of clapping and cheering that is the absolute minimum that can be considered clapping and cheering. This is our baseline level of clapping and cheering. So I want you to imagine that you are reincarnated as a male chicken, but it's a male chicken in the egg-laying industry. Can I have an amount of clapping and cheering that would express how happy you are? That's good. That's pretty... That round of applause lasted longer than its life. This is the comedy of darkness that we're wandering into. Okay, now we're going for a medium amount of clapping cheering. I want you to imagine that you are dead, you are reincarnated. You're reincarnated as a male chicken, and you're a fancy chicken, but unfortunately you're a Polish chicken, which means that your feathers go down over your eyes and you can't see anything. You live for 2 years and you look great, but you have no idea what you look like. And the only time you can ever see is if you fall off something and the wind blows feathers out of your eyes, and you go, wow, what the... Oh. Can I have that amount of clapping cheering, please? It's better than that. Come on, medium. Good, right. Medium, by the way, some of you are marking according to an Oxbridge system. Medium is 5 out of 10, not 3 out of 10. And then we're going to go for the very top level. So I want you to imagine that you die and you are reincarnated, but this time you are reincarnated as a fighting chicken. You are reincarnated as 10 kilograms of pure, delicious fighting skill. So can I have that amount of clapping and cheering, please? That is it. That is the level that I want when I introduce my friends. I want you to go nuts for them. So are you ready to meet our first chicken expert of the night? Would you please give it up like crazy for Kate Humble?
Hello, I'm Kate Humble, and as Steve said, I'm off the telly. I don't really do this sort of stuff. It's safer being in a box than having people there. I can't really see you. There are these big lights. I'm going to try and take this off so I can wander about. Oh, there we are. Hello, everyone. I think chicken expert might be a little overgenerous. However, this does feel like a meeting of Chickens Anonymous. So, in the spirit of that, I will say that hello, I'm Kate Humble, and I do keep chickens. Quite a lot of them, actually. I tried to count them this morning before I came here so that I could confess properly, and I lost count. So, but I haven't, if anyone here is from DEFRA, got over 50. I promise. I didn't keep chickens as a child. In fact, we didn't have any birds at all apart from a canary that we found in our garden and rescued and took into the house. So that was my only experience of keeping birds. She was a lovely canary. We called her Tufty. I'm not entirely sure why. And she liked eating chickweed and pineapple weed. That was one of her favourites. And she really liked the Hoover. That would get her singing. And she got eaten by our cat, Thunderpaws. So that was my only experience of birds. And then in 2007, something cataclysmic happened to me and my life. I moved to Wales. In case any of you have never heard of Wales, it's sort of in the west, and it's quite wet, and it's very, very pretty. And there's not a great deal to do. There aren't really theatres or television or the internet. And so really the only thing to do is to start keeping animals, just to keep yourself amused. The house that we bought is what's called a small holding, or if you're American, you call it something else, and I can't remember what it is, but it's like a backyard farm or something like that. Anyway, so we found ourselves with a small holding, which means that we've got 4 acres of very steep land, a very nice view of England, but we're on Welsh Hill. And when you take on land, you suddenly feel that you have this enormous responsibility to fill it with things. And the people who had lived there before us had chickens, and they forgot to take them with them. Well, they didn't. They said, we just haven't made a plan for the chickens yet, so could you look after them for us? So we said, being kind of obliging and quite grateful, and also he had a sort of slightly murderous look about him, so we thought we probably ought to agree to anything he said. We said, yes, of course we'll look after your chickens. And we were solemnly introduced to them. There were 3 hens and a cockerel. They had been named, I know that Steve was talking about naming chickens. These didn't have 1940s names at all. These had been named after the wife, Kerry. They had been named after her colleagues at work. So the cock was called Rodri, and then there was Barbara, Jeanette, and Maureen. One of them was above Orpington, obviously. Anyway, so I now have my first experience of looking after chickens, and we moved in December, and anyone who does have chickens will know that chickens are basically quite rubbish in the winter. They don't really do anything useful. You know, sometimes they'll lay an egg, most of the time they look crap because they're kind of molting, and you have to remember to shut them in even though it's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because when you live in the country, in fact, even if you live in a town, a fox will come and eat them. So you have to be kind of, on your mettle with chickens. Anyway, our second morning in Wales, I went to go and see my girls, as I was now calling them. I sort of saw it as squatters' rights, and or whatever the chicken equivalent of that is. And one of them had laid me an egg, and I was so pathetically grateful. Obviously, I ate it very quickly. It was delicious, and there is actually nothing better than an egg that has come straight out of a chicken's bum and it's still slightly warm and slightly soiled. And it was delicious. And I thought, well, this is it. This is my new life. Chickens are for me. And then this terrible thing happened. Kerry, the witch, came back to what was now our house with a cardboard box in the boot of her car and took away my chickens. She reclaimed them. I mean, how dare she? Anyway, she packed them in a cardboard box, including Rodri, who was most indignant, and took them away. And so I have to confess, bereft. If a woman can be bereft because she's, had her feathered friends taken away, well, that was me. I was in that state. And so we had to go and see Janet down the hill. Now, Janet is a chicken lady. That's what I call her. She is just the chicken lady, and she has a garden quite literally full of chickens. And so we went down to see her and said, we'd like some chickens, but we don't really know what we're doing. And she said, well, I recommend you have 3 hens, and we'll give you some different ones, one that lays blue eggs, one that lays brown eggs, and one that just looks pretty. We thought that sounded absolutely fine. So we got our 3 hens, and then something that will happen if any of you do move to the country. This is something that happens, that somebody finds out that you're there, you're new, you're trying to be obliging, and you will basically take any animal that anyone doesn't want anymore. So the first knock we got on the door was from somebody saying, "Hi, I gather you've got chickens. I've got a lovely cockerel." No one, as Steve has said, wants cockerels, but some people won't put them in the chipper. They'll just keep them and then they'll pass them on to some idiot that's just moved in from London. So they gave me a cockerel, and he was very beautiful, and I called him Roger because Roger the cock seemed somehow appropriate. And Roger and my 3 girls lived in bliss in the orchard, and laid eggs, and I was very, very happy about that. And I discovered 2 things about chickens. It was like an initiation period, if you like. The first thing is that it is amazingly easy for chickens to take up inordinate amounts of your time. There weren't many people with chickens here, but you guys know. God, most of you have spent 2 years doing nothing but looking at chickens or more. But you can just stand in a field and watch chickens. They're kind of fascinating in a chickeny sort of way. You just, and I have literally found myself just sort of standing in the field watching them. I call it, I say, well, I'm kind of an animal behaviourist, so surely I'm allowed to do this sort of thing. But it is amazing how long you can just stand and watch chickens. The other thing that I learned from keeping chickens, and it's something I actually had to take issue with the Being Human Festival, because when you read the blurb on the internet about this festival, one of the things it says is that chickens are stupid. Oh, no, they're not. Chickens are devious, evil, mean, and anything but stupid. Chickens do suffer from a particularly grim parasite called red mite. And it afflicts them particularly in the summer when it's warm and a little bit sweaty. It is a tiny, tiny little, it looks like a sort of the head of a pin. It's red, as you probably guessed. And it's a bloodsucker. And it will suck chickens dry, given half the chance. And so when your chickens start to get a little bit antsy about going back into their house, when they're, they stop laying, when they basically start to have bits missing, you know that they've probably got red mite and you've got to do something about it. Which, believe me, is no fun at all. It's basically, you have to kind of treat it like a military exercise, I think is the best way to describe it. So the morning that we discovered that our chickens had red mite, we had to creep in. So it's morning, it's the summer. Now obviously it's been light since maybe 5 o'clock in the morning. We haven't been that keen, but it's maybe 7. And my husband and I creep up to the coop and think, right, now somehow we've got to get in there and get these birds. We use an old garden shed, so you can actually get into it. We weren't trying to crawl into one of those like really tiny little bijou ones with a heart-shaped door. We weren't trying to do that. So we had to let ourselves in without the chickens getting out, and then be able to catch them. You then have to douse them with this kind of powder that is like something that Chemical Alley would have come up with, and then you have to get the chickens out of the house. You then have to kind of torch the house with a Bunsen burner, scrub it, lock it down, and then finally the chickens can go back in. Hopefully, you having murdered all these horrible little mites. It's actually quite satisfying. If you ever had to do this, just as an aside, when you have successfully murdered the mites, they all fall down onto the floor, and you literally have piles. Not you know what I mean. Piles of mites. And anyway, so there we are, military style operation. We've got the powder. We've worked out our tactics, and we're going to creep in through the door, and we're going to get the chickens. We're going to spray them. They're going to be pathetically grateful to us. Lay loads of eggs, and it'll be mission accomplished, and we'll be able to go to work. Not a bit of it. We sneak in through the door. And these apparently dumb birds immediately know that something is up. And you can see their tiny little chicken brains, their little bird brains whirring, and they're thinking, okay, how are we going to get them? How are we going to go? We're going to have to escape. We're going to have to get out of here. And, as we're nailing 2 of them, right, I've got one, I've got the other one, Roger the cock makes a hasty exit out into the field. Can we catch the little bugger? Can we help? And this chicken, literally, he outmaneuvered us, outwitted us, and then took cover in the thorniest bush he could possibly find. And the only way we could get him was to literally crawl into this bush. So by now we're kind of bleeding copiously, and this cockerel is looking extremely proud of himself. So never, ever think that keeping chickens is an easy thing to do and that they're dumb, because they really are not. Now, in the spirit of this festival, I thought that I should sort of pull up some chicken facts for you, try and find out what it is that chickens have done for us. Why do we care about chickens so much? Why have some of you lot been, why have you got 2 million quid to study these things? Well, let's find out, shall we? I wrote some things down on the train on the way up from Wales. So the first thing that chickens gave us in the media, because we like to be considered, we like to get our facts straight. We're famous for that. So the first thing you gave us was some terrific headline opportunities. Boffins given £2 million to study how chickens get on with humans, screamed the Daily Mirror. Ruffled feathers, oh marvellous, said campaigners, ridiculous study which should have been way down the, can you guess, pecking order. Hooray! The Daily Mail asked if it was, wait for it, a bird-brained idea. People are crying foul! Of course they are. Thank you. You kept copywriters busy for weeks. What else have chickens done for us? Well, as Steve said, and as many of you know, we do eat them. There was a rather fabulous fact from the Vegetarian Calculator, which likes to calculate how much meat we all eat. And it says meat eaters in the UK will eat 2,400 chickens in their lifetime. I'm assuming that's human lifetime rather than chicken lifetime. And the average person, now this was another one, this was in the Daily Mirror, I love this one. The average person eats 183 eggs a year. That's 11,163 eggs in your lifetime. Now, the Mirror thought that that's probably not really very clear. So what they decided to do was to equate that in weight to something else that you could possibly imagine. Can you imagine the meeting? I tell you what, let's find out how many eggs people weigh, and then we'll work out how much that weighs, and then we'll make it similar to, oh, I know. So what the Mirror can tell you, and I can now pass this little gem of information on to you, is that you eat a cow's weight in eggs in your lifetime. You will be delighted to know, drink 4 hippos worth of tea bags in your lifetime. Who knew? Hooray for the Mirror. Now, of course, chickens have given us language, henpecked. And if you see chickens behave, they do indeed, they are vile. I had to introduce some new chickens to my small flock, under 50, remember, my under 50 flock, and they're vile to each other. Henpecking, definitely, there is definitely a pecking order. These things, chickens have given us. Being chicken, being scared, I don't actually know where that comes from, because chicken seems to be pretty fearless to me. Chicken and egg situation, where would we be without these bon mots in our language? Chickens obviously have inspired some wonderful literature. Who can forget Chicken Licking? The Hoboken Chicken Emergency, one of my favourites as a child. And I think arguably the very best film ever made. What was it? Chicken Run, exactly. Very much. Who needs Casablanca? Now the final thing that I would like to offer you this evening are some stunning chicken facts. You're going to go downstairs, you're going to mingle with the high society of Highbury and Islington later, so if you want to be able to impress them, I thought I would put you together some nice chicken facts. So here we go. Chickens, this goes back to them not being dumb. Chickens can recognise apparently 100 faces, 100 different faces. I don't know how you can tell that they can recognise 100 different faces, but apparently it says on Wikipedia, so it must be true. It also says on Wikipedia that I used to be a magician's assistant and would be cut in half every night, which isn't true, but I'm going to pretend that it is, because it makes me much more interesting. A mother hen will talk to her eggs, and the eggs will talk back. Actually true. Has anyone ever seen that happen? It's very true, isn't it? Yeah, I've had broody hens, they sit on their eggs and they make this lovely kind of noise. And they're sort of getting... That was almost my crocodile. I have hatched crocodiles as a job once. Crocodile eggs make an amazing noise. They go... And then you have to break them open and get your finger out of the way really quickly, because otherwise the little buggers come out and it's like being stapled. It's very, very painful. Anyway, but that's not a chicken. Don't tell anyone in Highbury and Islington that I did that. Chickens Chickens are the closest ancestor to T-Rex. Not just any old dinosaur, T-Rex, apparently. Not sure I believe that one. But no one in Highbury and Islington will be any the wiser. Chickens outnumber humans 4-1. The oldest chicken that ever lived until it was 22 years old. There you are. So that's your evening's entertainment sorted. If any of you pull tonight, thank the chickens. I'm going to end on a really bad chicken joke. I'm not a comedian, you've got lots more bad chicken jokes to come this evening, but I thought I would tell you that the first chicken joke ever written was in 1847, but I don't know what it was. However, my final chicken joke is, why did the rubber chicken cross the road? Because she wanted to stretch her legs. And on that note, I'd like to wish you a clucking good night.
One more time for Kate Humble, chicken fans. I was really taken with the fact that chickens can recognise 100 human faces, and my first thought was, which 100 human faces? Have they got the World Cup 1982 sticker around or something? They're waiting for Ian Rush to go past, and they're like, what? Right, good. So there's the old question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Kate talked about chickens. Our next speaker is going to talk about eggs, thus proving once and for all that the chicken came before the egg. That's that question over. If anyone wants to write that up as an academic paper, that's fine. If I could be at least third author, that would be quite nice. Are you ready to meet your second chicken expert of the night? You see, the energy level here is good, and the rest of you have forgotten how it works, haven't you? Because you've heard the stories of chickens. So remember, if you don't get it right, I'm going to introduce him. He's going to start coming up. I'll be like, that's not enough clapping and cheering. I'm going to send him to sit down again. I'll introduce him again. There'll be some more clapping and cheering. It won't be enough. I'll sit him down again. He'll be like, what was the chicken gig like? And you're like, well, it's this really weird performance art piece. And a man just shouts Martin Austwick over and over again, and he goes, no! So let's do it properly. Are you ready to meet your second chicken expert of the night? Would you please welcome up to this very stage, Martin Austwick!
So I've got two disclaimers for today. Firstly, I'm probably the least qualified person to talk about chickens or eggs, as I am an expert in neither. And the second of which is you're going to hear the word. Oh, no, you're not going to see a chicken there. You're going to hear the word eggs a lot, and there's going to be a lot of these drawings as well. Eggs. So eggs come from all kinds of places. Obviously, they come from chickens. They also come from ducks, from fish, very small boiled eggs, if you're going for fish eggs, lizards, closest relation to the chicken, of course, platypuses. I don't know if that's illegal to eat a platypus egg. Larger birds, but there's a big bird, and some other kind of animals. I'm not so sure about those ones. Some research went into this talk. Now, eggs on their own are very sad. I know we all enjoy a boiled egg or a scrambled egg, but I think one of the great beauties of eggs is that they're sociable food. On their own, they get a bit lonely. But you start to combine them with other things like sugar, flour, oil, and butter, and all of a sudden you can make some really wonderful things. In fact, just with a little bit of vinegar and combining an egg with oil, you get this friendly mixture of eggs and oils. There's, of course, mayonnaise. So eggs are the sociable food. That's one of the reasons I like eggs. I'm going to talk about the science of eggs. So I should say I'm not an egg expert. I'm interested in egg cookery, and I sort of got a little bit obsessed with eggs, and ended up making lots and lots of things out of nothing really but eggs. So meringues and custards and so on. And so I'm going to talk a bit about the science of meringues. And I got a lot of this book, and there's some real science there. I got a lot of this book from reading a book called McGee's on Cookery. So this is all real stuff. This is real science. So an egg is like a beautiful woman, as I'm sure you agree. Well, more specifically, an egg white is like a beautiful woman with curly hair. Now, at this point, I there's a bit of tension in the room. I'm not going to do a sort of Tim Hunt thing and talk about eggs crying. This is a metaphor about curly hair because my wife has curly hair, and so this is my experience of curly haired people. This could be a curly haired man or a non-beautiful curly haired woman. This isn't discriminatory. So if you've got curly hair, and as you can probably see, I've got fairly normal, boring straight hair. So I've experienced this secondhand. But if you've got curly hair, it can be really hard to work with, and if the weather's warm or wet, you get this sort of frizzy mess, and it's not really looking the way you want it to. So you go to the hair salon, or in some cases, just grab a brush, and you do some work on this hair, and by sort of working on this and by teasing out, you end up with something that looks really, really wonderful. There we go. So, and I think genuinely curly hair is the most exciting hair. I wish I could do something more interesting with this mop. But the problem that, and maybe curly hair people will recognise this, a lot of the time if you're curly haired and you go to the hairdresser, they will overstyle it. They'll try and straighten it, they'll cut it until the point where it ends up losing all of the character of your beautiful curly hair, and you end up with very, very straight hair. Now in this metaphor I'm using of eggs, I call this the Hitler egg. Very straight, boring hair, not what you want. So what has this got to do with eggs? Why am I talking about combing your hair, and has this have to do with eggs? Well, this is actually the chemical structure of egg white. And so what you've got there is these curly proteins, these long sort of organic molecules, and these molecules of water in between. So it's in its natural state, when you see sort of grey water, that's what an egg white is actually. It's just a mixture of those two things. And this is really amazing, right? So you can actually change the chemical structure of this just by whipping it up. So there's a couple of things happening, but one of the things that's happening when you whisk up an egg white is this. So as you're whisking, it's kind of dragging the protein strands. It's pulling them out. So rather than being curled up, they're sort of becoming more like straight lines. And because protein strands are sticky, before they were sticking to themselves, but now they're sticking to each other, they start to form these sort of longer bridges, and they form these larger structures. There's my finger. And of course, another thing you're doing is you're introducing air into the mix. So you've actually got these bridges of protein with water sort of stuck in between them around the bubbles of air. And that's where you get the foaming. So you can take a small amount of this egg white, you can whip it up into this amazing foam, you bake it, and then the proteins sort of solidify, and you get these beautiful meringues. So that's sort of what's going on in meringues. But if you over whip it, what happens is the proteins align even more, and they actually force out the water, they squeeze it out, so that you kind of get the separation between the two. So in this diagram, it sort of looks like a protein bridge over a beautiful gorge, but if you've ever tried to make meringues, what you get is a sort of flaky, grainy meringue, and the water just whips out. So that's what's happening in when you whip a meringue. Of course, eggs, as I said, they're the sociable food, so they really like, it's a bad meringue, they really like sugar. So if you get that situation where you've got your Hitler egg and your foam is collapsing, add some sugar. I've read the scientific explanation for this, I'm not sure I really buy it, but it's to do with the way it changes the quality of the water and makes it more difficult to squeeze out from between the proteins, and it sort of gets stuck in. But I'm not sure I entirely believe that. But anyway, it works, it does work. So if you're getting a meringue which is starting to go awry, add some sugar and it'll fix it. Okay, so that's the science of eggs. I'm talking about eggs and science communication now. And about eggs and democracy, really. So several years ago, when I was into all this egg cookery and I was cooking lots of meringues and I was attempting and failing to cook macarons because they're really hard, I instigated this hashtag egg chat because I was posting so many pictures of sort of beautiful poached eggs that I'd made and custards and stuff. I thought it warranted its own hashtag. So I was on social media using this. This is a search on Instagram, and the majority of these, I should say, are either my photos or photos of my friends taking the mick out of me for using a hashtag to talk about eggs, which is entirely fair enough. So I was using that hashtag quite happily. So I was using it to talk about my egg work, and my friends were using it to tease me for being obsessed with eggs. But then things changed with Egg Chat Wars. This was about 2 years ago. So suddenly, somebody from what I used to call the Egg Marketing Board of America, and now I know it's got a different name, and I'll talk about that in a second, started tweeting saying, "Hey, why not tune into our awesome webinar on eggs?" A webinar was coming up. It was promising to talk about how eggs are really good for you. They weren't so high in cholesterol as was commonly thought, and what a great thing they were. And this is a bit of a drag. This sort of carried on. Eggs are really good for you. They're really tasty. Come and check out a webinar. I found this a bit annoying. I had this nice little hashtag, and it was being sort of overtaken by this very sort of on-message corporate stuff. Come and tune onto our webinar. It's going to be really good. So that was bad enough, and then things got worse because then vegans found out about this. And I think it's fair to describe them as militant vegans because they were not a fan of eggs. So they started tweeting stuff like, here's a link to those eggs that you're chatting about. That's almost verbatim what they were saying. And then it would be a photo of a chicken literally crying itself to death. Something equivalently horrible of the kind of stuff Steve was talking about from factory farming. And this carried on, but they didn't stop. I mean, they didn't stop the other side. Here's a photo of a battery farm. Horrible stuff on this hashtag. Again, all very valid, but it's a shame that my little hashtag got ambushed by this cultural war. And meanwhile, this sort of incredible corporate message going, "Oh, really looking forward to the webinar tomorrow." It's very, very jarring. So, I think the future egg chat might represent the future of democracy. And the reason for that is this is something that started off as a sort of a small movement between me and a group of people, and it's turned into a polarised cultural war, in which case neither side fully represents all of the views of the people that are taking part in egg chat. You've got enemies of eggs, which are mostly vegans. So I didn't know how to depict a vegan. I've chosen to describe a vegan as a heterochromic pirate eating something which isn't made from animals. I did this talk a while ago and someone said they were allergic to eggs. Actually, another group is people who are allergic to eggs, again, enemies of eggs. Now, on the other side of the cultural divide, the friends of eggs, or the good eggs, if you like. With me, of course. I like eggs. I'm a fan of eggs, an advocate of eggs. The patriarchy. So egg production is the harnessing of a female reproductive process for profit, often by men. So I can't think of a more effective working definition, which it gives me pause. On the other side, the egg marketing board. Now so at this point, I have started to feel that I'm on the wrong side of history in the egg wars. And then things kind of got a bit more heated. I don't know if you saw this a couple of months ago. Egg chat wars entered the mainstream. And this isn't a joke. The Guardian expose of the American Egg Board. So that's the US Department of Agriculture scrambles to investigate egg lobbyist CEO resigns. This is the story. So the American Egg Board, which is the thing I was referring to, is the Egg Marketing Board. They're being investigated after there was a Guardian expose that they had been conducting a campaign against a group called Hampton Creek. Hampton Creek is a Silicon Valley startup that's trying to find replacements for eggs in things like mayonnaise and other sorts of products. So the American Egg Board had been basically trying to find ways to plant positive publicity about eggs that advised Unilever on a case where they sued Hampton Creek because they were describing their product as mayonnaise, didn't have eggs in it. All of this stuff they really shouldn't be doing. So the Egg Board is something, I don't have to read all the text, but the Egg Board is a thing that all of these egg producers in America subscribe to. It's a $5.5 billion industry, and it's specifically prohibited from influencing government action. It's specifically prohibited from disparaging non-egg commodities, which he was obviously trying to do in this case. But this has had serious repercussions, because actually, in the last few months, we've seen the early retirement of the 2015's Egg Person of the Year. Also the CEO of the Egg Board. It feels like a bit of a stitch up. She's CEO of the American Egg Board and she got Egg Person of the Year. Is that a coincidence? I'm quite happy about this. I wasn't even considered for that award. I don't think I was even shortlisted. I sort of feel like I'm on the wrong side of history. I feel like egg chat needs to be reclaimed really from these minority interests, which are fairly powerful ones. And brought into a broader discourse in order to save not just egg chat but democracy as a whole. And so the way we're going to do that is to use egg chat. So any time that you're looking at an egg, any time you're eating an egg or cooking an egg, tweeting about an egg, use the hashtag EggChat, and maybe we can save this crazy world. Thank you very much.
One more time for Egg Person of the Year 2016. Come on, last week. So we're now going to have what in the comedy industry we call a break. Those of you who've not been to a lot of comedy gigs, these are the rules of a break. Your job is to get as much liquid into your bodies as possible and as much liquid out of your bodies as possible. And you've got 15 minutes to do that, and then we'll be right back here, and Danny will entertain us in the second half. But just before we do, can I have a massive round of applause for the people that you saw in the first half? You saw Kate Humble, and you saw Martin Osgood, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back here in 15 minutes for more chickens, people, chickens, egg puns, chicken puns, egg puns, chicken puns. Thank you. Hello chicken fans, did you all get a good drink? Right, let's do a quick little bit of scientific testing. Give me a cheer if you enjoyed the first half. Give me a cheer if you enjoyed the break. Our contract says if the break's more popular, we have to cancel the second half. So it turns out you just wanted to go to the pub in Highbury. So welcome back to Why Did the Chicken? This is the second half. We have got an amazing headliner. I've flown in all the way from America. Can I get an ooh? And they have different kinds of chickens there. No, seriously, their breed standards are different. They look at some of the British breed standards and they're like, that is ridiculous. Your bird looks completely wrong. There's one called like an Old English. Totally different there to here. Amazing. Right, I wanted to talk to you about the humanities. Right, give me a cheer if you're a fan of the humanities. Yeah, quite right. You know, let's study us. Let's look at why we do things. Let's look at why we do things and go, why are they? No, there's no reason. I mean, I'll write down that they're doing it. No, it's bonkers. What? The thing is, this event is part of a huge festival about humanities called Being Human, which I thought meant I had to turn into a werewolf or a vampire or some good goths laughing. Goth/young adult television consumers laughing. And so the thing is, why do you have to have a festival about humanities? Why do you have to spend money on things like this and people like me to spread the word of the humanities? And it's very simple. It's scientists' fault. Because scientists, I don't know if you know this, scientists are very needy. I don't know if you've ever met a scientist, but what they always say is, the public don't know enough about science. I just wish that the public would learn about science. Maybe we should have just science on TV, just eminent men of science explaining science to the public. And scientists also have all the money, because what they've said is, give us all the money and we'll cure cancer. And everyone's like, here you go. And have you cured cancer yet? No, but there's a lot of it on telly. So we've had to establish this idea of humanities communication so that we can kind of make some space around science communication. Because a lot of science communication relies on basically saying, it's not science, it's stupid. I've sat through so many things by scientists where they're like, media studies degree, I was like, maybe if you had a media studies degree, you would understand why just having a 20-hour-long programme where a man talks about science does not work. Sorry?
It works for Brian.
It works well. I'm not going to make any comment on that man. No, just
Not even on his name.
Sorry?
Not even on his name.
Not even, no, we're staying well away from all of it because he's got 1 million Twitter fans and it only takes a couple of % of them to be really angry and come after me, and that is me off social media forever. So I'm staying away from anything like that. We've got to have that. So I wanted to talk a bit about archaeology and a bit about this idea that scientists look at other subjects and go, God, that's ridiculous. They don't know what they're doing. So the standard science joke about archaeology is that archaeologists, they find one thing and then they extrapolate wildly. And they're like, I have found this single carved object. I don't know what it is, so they must have worshipped it. It's like, you know, going through life now, the world is flattened, the aliens arrive, there's nothing left, they find one 20-sided dice, and they go, they must have built their entire society around this, around fighting dragons in dungeons. And that's what scientists think archaeologists do. But archaeologists, right, they are tired of this. They are tired of. So when the first time I talked about archaeology in the context of chickens at a science game, I got 4 words in and someone went, "Ritual!" from the back, as like a science heckle against archaeology. Archaeologists aren't like that anymore. So, here's an example. I was talking to some zoo archaeologists who work on the chicken project. They're the only archaeologists I know now, basically. I meet people in the humanities and they're like, "Oh, actually, I'm studying the history of... is there chickens in it?" And they say no. I'm like, "Fuck off then. Cluck off then. Cluck off hen. Cluck egg." Anyway. So we were talking about archaeology, and there's a site, Flixborough in Lincolnshire. It's an Anglo-Saxon site. Let's give you some facts, right? Because archaeology these days is very scientific. It's about facts. The facts: there are loads of chicken bones. There are Holloway Road at 2 a.m. on a Saturday level of chicken bones. There's just chicken bones everywhere, all the way around it. Loads and loads. So we've got loads of chicken bones. The other thing we've got on the site is bits of pottery. Now, in the archaeology industry, these are called sherds of pottery, because years ago, an archaeologist spelt it wrong, and they were too proud to ever change it. They used the word shards. Also, if you want to wind up archaeologists, talk about the giant building by London Bridge and just call it the Sherd the whole time. And for a while, they'd be like, "Yeah, it should be called that." No, wait, you're taking the piss out of me. Anyway, so they've got these sherds of pottery, and a lot of the sherds of pottery are from cooking vessels. And due to some amazing science, I'll give them that they're very good at this one tiny thing, the scientists. Due to some amazing science, right, if you get a bit of a cooking pot that's 1,600 years old, and you do some magic on it, that's the depth at which I need to know science. You do a magic. And that allows you to examine the proteins, and with the proteins you can tell what was being cooked in the pots. So you can be like, "Oh yeah, because that's got that amount of carbon-14 in it, that means it was eating shit, that means it's a pig." And so on. So what we've got, right, archaeologists at the site, I was talking to these 2 guys doing the archaeology at the site, doing this amazing science magic, and I said, "So you've got thousands of chicken bones that for some reason," and this is what I don't get about archaeology, these people who lived there were chicken bones everywhere, and their first thought was, "We should pile soil on those so future generations can study them." Because that's how archaeology works in my head. The proof of this, by the way, I've always made that joke. Archaeology is just people pile soil. They're like, "I really like that toilet with bits of pottery in. Put soil on it for future generations." And archaeologists go, "That's not how that works." And then I went to Aviemore. If you've ever been to Aviemore, have you been to Aviemore? Yeah, it's basically just keep going. North, keep going, get there eventually. Just when you think there isn't any more stuff, then there's Aviemore. Aviemore has within it an ancient stone circle. Can I get an ooh? The ancient stone circle is in the middle of a housing estate. If you follow the signs, you actually walk across someone's drive to get there. And when you get there, it says, "Here is the ancient stone circle." And you look, and it's just a patch of grass. And the sign says, "It's so valuable, we've piled soil on it to preserve it for future generations." So, we can't judge people of the olden days by our standards. Anyway, right. There's bones, there's bones, there's bones, there's bones. There's all of these thousands of bones. And we know they're chicken bones because we can do all sorts of clever analyses. They're boiling the chickens in the pot, so we can identify that these are definitely chicken bones. And we've got pots, and the pots have definitely had chicken cooked in them. So I was talking to these archaeologists, and I said, "So, there's loads of chicken bones, there's a human settlement, there's pots. Chicken has definitely been cooked in the pots. Are they eating chickens?" And because they're modern archaeologists, they said, "We can't jump all the way to that conclusion." And that's what I really love about modern archaeology, is like they've taken on board enough science. So they have these amazing, some of the chicken people I was working to, if a bone is found, if a chicken bone is found, like if you or I find a chicken bone, we're like, "I really hope that's a chicken bone, not a human finger bone, and I'm not qualified enough to tell the difference." I found one recently near my flat, and I was like, "Oh yeah," because I lived in a rough bit of town. Anyway, they then have this thing called the bone pipeline. Now, I can't decide whether the bone pipeline is a better porno film or horror film, as it would work as either horror film, like "Imagine the terror, the bone pipeline." But the porno film is like, he was the first gay man to go and work on an oil rig. Yes, an unlimited supply of lube coming out. No, we're not going down the oil pipeline. pipeline. The bone pipeline today. Right, the bone pipeline. Where was I going? Bone pipeline. Yeah. So if they find one bone, it has to go through all sorts of measurement things to prove that it's a chicken bone, and then it gets a little bit ground up, and there's all sorts of clever DNA analysis. Because one of the big questions is, are old chickens like new chickens? Have we changed chickens so much? Because they've only been around like 8,000 years. We made them as well. Like, we didn't make them in England. Those of you who are like, oh, the proud British cock. A, Boris Johnson joke in there somewhere. B, we didn't make them. They're from Asia. And yeah, so are they the same? We don't know. That's one of the things. If we do this gig again next year, I'll confidently come on and be like, old chickens are exactly the same as new chickens. Because we've done the DNA. Anyway, that was kind of everything I know about archaeology. It's weird, I don't absorb very much. Oh, here's a fun archaeology fact. If you go to Chester, there's an amphitheatre. And one of the fun things so, I don't know if you know about eggs. Martin talked about them a lot, but he didn't talk about the shells at all, which I thought was missing quite a lot. So, let's think about what is an egg. There's shell, and that's hard, and then there's some see-through stuff. I wanted to say it was white, but of course it's colourless, science fans, colourless. And there's yellow stuff. And basically, from all of that, you have to build a chick. You don't get any extra stuff. You're not allowed to put things in, it's just this. And so what it has to do, chicks have bones. I don't know if you realised, you would know if you'd heard them go in the chipper. Chicks have bones. I'm never letting it go. Basically, I am looking for the social impact from this gig if you all become vegetarians on my out. So they've got bones. So what they do is they suck the calcium off the shell. It all dissolves and it goes into them. And what that means is if you find a bit of shell, no matter how old the bit of shell is, and you put it under an electron microscope, if it's had calcium stripped off the back of it, that means a chick grew. And if it's still got all the calcium, that means basically someone ate it, like Kate, straight out of a chicken's bum. And so, yeah, if you go to Chester Amphitheatre, it turns out what people used to do when they were watching the sport was not eat popcorn and drink Budweiser, they would just sit and eat eggs. Because there's eggshells all the way around the outside where the people were, not in the middle where the fighting was. And lots of these eggshells have had the calcium stripped out of them, which means people weren't just eating eggs, they were eating nearly chicks. You can't judge people by the olden days. Also, you lot are responsible for the chipper. So you've not got a leg to stand on with any of this. One into the comedy of darkness against him. I know, it's awkward, isn't it? Right, so I've got one act to introduce in the second half, and I don't think he was quite expecting me to end on such a large amount of gross, dead chickness. But the thing is, right, if you look at all the chickens in the world, like the average chicken, because there's so many in the meat industry, the average chicken is a chicken that's going to get eaten, and they're different to all the others. It's like, if you have to write, what does a normal chicken look like? It is in a box. It's unavoidable. Anyway, sorry. God, I was like, I'll dig this out of the dark chicken area that I've got in. Do you want to hear about the darkest chicken in the world? There's a chicken, I think it's called the Ayam Samani, and it is a chicken that has been bred so that all of it is black. Right, not just all its feathers are black, its beak is black, its eyes are black, a normal chicken eye is black, that's not a chicken. Its blood is black, its organs are black. If you see photos of them, right, even a photo of one can actually see your soul. That is how dark these chickens are. That is the sort of dark chicken area I should have gone for, just more comedy chicken breeding stuff, Steve. Right, so I'm going to introduce our final act. He's an amazing comedian. He is also an amazing chicken owner. So he's like the two giant circles of the Venn diagram. If he had a PhD in archaeology, the rest of us could go home. Because this would just be done. This would be absolutely perfect. And I need you to show him a lot of love because he's come a long way. So, chicken fans, are you ready to meet your headliner? Fantastic, great energy from here. Here again, you're like my problem area, aren't you? As the hardcore vegans are like, we've heard the chicken story enough times. Let's try one more time. Are you ready to meet your headliner? Would you please welcome up to the stage, Danny Lovell!
What's happening in London?
Chickens!
About 10 years ago, I moved from my apartment in Manhattan to a place in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And the neighborhood was pretty run down. It was full of low-income housing and minorities blasting hip-hop everywhere and pawn shops. And over 5 years, the neighborhood turned around and gentrified, and the pawn shops all became coffee shops, and hip-hop all became Sonic Youth. and the minorities all became hipsters and skinny jeans. And one of the last holdouts was my building. I lived across the hall from an Ecuadorian gang that were just known as the Blancos. And the way I would tell them apart was there was Little Blanco, medium-sized Blanco, and then Big Blanco, who was the main Blanco. And we shared a backyard, the Blancos and I, and it was a very depressing backyard. No one had been in it for many years. It was filled with broken bottles and barbed wire for some reason. I don't even know how there was barbed wire there. Someone just put that there to make it more depressing. Lots of trash and a rusty old weight set. And one morning I decided I'd had enough of this and I was gonna take action and clean this backyard up. So I put on gloves and grabbed a garbage bag at 6 in the morning and I headed outside to reclaim the backyard. And around 11 a.m., the main Blanco had woken up and popped his head out the window and he goes, "Yo, what you doing, son?" And I said, "I'm cleaning the backyard." He's like, "Oh, that's what's up, I'll help you." And he came outside and we started cleaning the backyard together and hanging out. It was the first time that I'd ever interacted with the main Blanco in 5 years. So he started telling me about his history, how when he was young he went to juvenile hall, because he may or may not have stabbed somebody, that's unclear. But he told me that he'd reformed and he did it through artwork and now he was running a tattoo parlor out of his kitchen across the hall. Which explained a lot, you know? Like all the screaming at random times, and people leaving with bloody arms unexplained down the hallway. Questions were being answered, you know? It was good. So we're cleaning the backyard, and as the day goes on, people start popping their head out of their windows on the higher up floors in the building saying, "What, you cleaning the backyard?" "Yeah." And they were so excited, they're like, "I'm coming to help you." Everyone must have been so depressed looking at this backyard like I was. And the whole building came together. When we finished cleaning the backyard, it was like the Berlin Wall coming down, you know? Liberation was when we took the rusty weight set out, and that was the final. And everybody went back to their apartments except for me and the main Blanco, who went to a bar and had a few drinks and started hanging out and talking. And I said, "You know what would really make this backyard complete? Chickens." I was like, "We should probably get some chickens." And the main Blanco was like, "Yeah, that's a great idea, son. We gotta get some chickens." I'm like, "You're right. I'm done paying for eggs. Like, that's a big expense around there." And we're really pumped up. He's like, "What are we gonna get them? Let's do it right now." I'm like, "I don't know. Maybe a live poultry shop. They usually advertise that they have chickens." So he's like, "All right, let's find one." And we ventured out into Brooklyn, and we found a live poultry shop, which was run by some Arabic dude. And we go in, and I'm like, "Hey, we'd like some chickens to go alive." And this guy's like, "My friend, we don't sell live chicken. It's illegal. We only weigh and fillet." I'm like, "So just weigh and don't fillet, you know?" He's like, "No, only weigh and fillet." I'm like, "Weigh and don't fillet." He's like, "Weigh and fillet." And Blanco like leans in, he's like, "Yo, screw this, man. We're gonna steal the chicken, all right? Keep it distracted." So I was thinking how to distract him. Brought up the movie Chicken Run. I was like, "You ever see it? You ever think about, is it possible, like, all the chickens could conspire and try and leave here sometime? Is that a thought you've ever had?" He's like, "I don't know what they're talking about." And out of the corner of my eye, I see Blanco chasing a loose chicken around the shop. I'm like this Benny Hill chase. So I'm like coming up with stuff. I go back to him, I'm like, "What's the most chicken you've ever sold in a day?" He's like, "What about these questions? What do you want? How many chicken?" I'm like, "You must have thought of the chicken and the egg question. You're around chickens." And then he notices Blanco goes, "What is your friend doing?" And Blanco's like, "Oh snap, we caught it, let's go!" And he bolts out of there. I don't think we really needed to run, but Blanco was very dramatic about it. He just ran out with no chicken, and I followed him. And as soon as we get outside, there's some Spanish guy who's like leaning on the wall who overheard the whole thing, and he calls Blanco over as we're walking away. He's like, "Yo, primo, come here." And Blanco goes over and they start talking to each other in Spanish. He's like, "No conoce nada de bueno. No conoce nada de bueno. And Blanco's like, "Yeah, que sé que no puedo, que quiero, que siente, cabrón." And it loosely translated to something like, "I know a place where they do under-the-counter live chicken sales." And I'll tell you where it is. So, he gives Blanco the address, and Blanco and I head over to this other live poultry shop. And Blanco walks in with this swagger because this is a Latino live poultry shop, so he like owns the place right away. He just walks in, he's like, "Yo, what's up?" And the guy's like, "See." And he just disappears. He comes back a minute later with the chicken, and then he's like, "Hey, you guys also want a rooster?" And he picks up this beautiful rooster. I don't know if you ever see a rooster up close, but they're magnificent. And we look at this rooster, we're like taken back, and Blanco's like, "Damn, that's an ill rooster." I'm like, "It is an ill rooster. That's a pretty great." So I'm thinking, you know what? We probably should get a rooster so we could have eggs, which is, as you've learned, the absolute wrong thing you want to do. Because they fertilize the eggs and then they're inedible. But I didn't know that, so I was like, "Yeah, let's get the rooster." So Blanco and I get the rooster and the chicken, and we name the rooster Juanito and the chicken Doña, and we start walking down Grand Boulevard, and we feel like $1 million. We're like, "We're gonna be eating fresh eggs every day, son." I'm like, "Yeah, that's right." Then I was like, "We should start selling them to all the hipsters in the neighborhood. They're gonna love it. We feel like they're free range, they're organic. We'll call it the Brooklyn Egg Company, because if you put the word Brooklyn and company around anything, hipsters go nuts for it." So we bring them home, and within a short period of time, we realized that the chicken that we'd gotten was too old. She was postmenopausal. She wasn't laying eggs anymore. And the rooster, from being in an enclosed dark space his whole life, had a broken internal clock, and he was going off at all times. 8 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 9 at night, 2 in the morning. But we didn't care. We really liked them. There were little signs that maybe some people in the neighborhood weren't thrilled about it. Like somebody changed their Wi-Fi name to "Shut Up Rooster." And then on a telephone pole one day, there was just a sign that said, "Honk if you love roosters." But more or less, things were pretty good. We were bonding with them. They really are smart. They would sit on our windowsill and tap with their little claws when they were hungry, and Blanco and Juanito got very close, and he'd call Juanito, and Juanito learned his name, and he'd come over and do like a rooster dance. And like, "Juanito, Juanito," and he'd just clap, and Juanito would go crazy. I actually brought you some pictures here. Let's see what happens.
Other way.
The other way? And there you have it. There we go. Yes? No?
Now.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah? That's nothing. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Should we give it one more try? There we go. There's Juanito, and there's Doña hanging out on the windowsill. And then feed him by hand, as you can see. That's Blanco and Juanito bonding. That's me and Blanco just messing around pretending to be homeless in the subway. That's not really related, but I thought it was a good picture. That's my dog Juno hanging out with Juanito. Juanito made friends with the dog too. And then actually the dog would follow Juanito everywhere. And then he even shared the bone, which I thought was pretty cool. And that's me and Blanco with the chickens right there, chicken, Doña and Juanito. So we had a pretty good thing going for a while, until one day I got woken up in the morning by this loud knocking at my window, and I went to open the door, and it was this Irish woman. She started screaming at me. She said, "It's not your rooster! It's not your rooster!" I'm like, "It's a joint-owned rooster." Partially, I said, "Why? What's going on?" She's like, "I'm 7 months pregnant. And that rooster has been going off at random times. And it's disturbing my pregnancy. If you don't get rid of that rooster, I'm calling the police." I'm like, "Don't call the police, alright?" I'm like, I'll talk to the other rooster owner, and I'm sure we can work something out. Just leave me your phone number. So she did, and I was like, okay, this is a delicate situation we got here, she's pregnant, this is a bad situation. Hopefully Blanco will be pretty reasonable. So I knocked on his door and I told him the situation. He's like, "White people ruining this neighborhood! She ain't never getting my rooster, never!" I was like, "All right, it's gonna be tougher than I thought." So I was like, well, I called the number, I said, "Here, you talk to her." And he took my phone, he slammed the door, and he just disappeared into his apartment for a while. And then he came back out and he's like, "Nah, it's all good, son." I'm like, "Really? You spoke to her and it's all good?" He's like, "Yeah, I talked to her, she understands now. That's my rooster, you my boy, and it's cool, she didn't know how it was." I was like, "Damn, that Blanco's smooth, And then a week went by, and then we got another knock at the door, and it was the city inspector. And I was like, "Blanco, there's a guy out there who's saying he's from the city. What should I do?" He's like, "We gotta hide Juanito now." So it was a crappy building, as you can see from the pictures, and Blanco's kitchen had floorboards that lifted up. So we hid Juanito under the floorboards. And the inspector came in and first looked around my apartment and then came into Blanco's apartment. He's walking around Blanco's apartment and the floors are creaking, and it felt like that scene from Inglourious Basterds, "There is the rooster! I know you're hiding it! Where is it? Little rooster!" But really what he said, he's like, "I got some complaints about noise. Somebody said there was a rooster around here." And Blanco and I were like, "Nope. That's crazy. Why would there be a rooster here?" And Blanco's like, "Nah, I know what it is. There's an injured cat that's in heat in the neighborhood. People have been thinking that's a rooster." And he's like, "All right, well." And just at that moment, Juanito's stupid internal clock went off, and from under the floorboard, and we were caught red-handed. And in desperation, Blanco thought he could connect with this guy on a minority level, since they were both minorities. He's like, "Yo, man, white people ruining this neighborhood, man. I've had that rooster since I was born." And I didn't know how long roosters live, but I'm pretty sure not 30 years. So the inspector's like, "Nah, you got 1 week. Otherwise, it's going to be a $2,000 fine. You got to get rid of that rooster. You have 1 week." So Blanco's first reaction after the guy left, he's like, "All right, 1,000 each, man. We're gonna do this." I'm like, "I don't have $1,000. I don't think you have $1,000. Like, I'll double up on tattoos. You do more comedy, son. We're gonna make this happen." I was like, "But even if we came up with the $2,000, they're just gonna hit us with another fine and another fine. It's not gonna end." I was like, "We gotta find a new home for the rooster." And he's like, I can't do it, man. That's my Juanito, man." I'm like, "I'll find a place, a humane place for the rooster." So all week, I'm calling up the ASPCA, the Humane Society, a place called Farm Rescue, which left me the best voicemail in return because I missed their call. I got a voicemail from someone who's like, "Hi, this is Sandy at Farm Rescue. We got your call and your message about Juanito. Sounds like a really special bird you got there. Unfortunately, we can't help you and take him because we literally have roosters coming out of our ears right now." I started calling farms, but nobody wanted, because if they had chickens, they didn't want to impregnate them, or if they had a rooster, they didn't want cockfights to break out. So no one would take the rooster. And it's 2 days to D-Day, and I said, "Blanco, we got to do a drop and run." And drop and run is exactly what it sounds like. It's where we take the rooster to a farm and we drop it and we run. That was the plan. So I said I scouted out a pretty good place. It's a petting zoo. They got a little pig area. They got a pen with like 100 chickens. It'll be like the Playboy Mansion for him. I'll just drop him in there. They got hay rides, kids pet them. It's a nice place. I'm like, "You should come and do the drop and run." And he's like, "No, man, you got to do this one on your own, man. I can't see him go. I can't be there for it. It's too painful." So 2 days later, I'm heading out for the drop and run. Blanco's got Juanito on his lap. He's holding him. He keeps pressing him up against his face. He's crying into the feathers. He's like, "I can't see you go, man. My little dude, man. I can't see you go." And I realized in that moment, I learned a lot more about Blanco because he saw himself in Juanito. It hit me that the neighborhood kind of perceived them both as loud and annoying, but if you got to know both of them, you'd realize they were really gems. and everybody was trying to get rid of both of them, and I felt like Juanito and Blanco must have felt like so hurt that nobody was there to stick up for this innocent bird. And that's the story, everybody. Thank you very much. A quick follow-up is the drop and run was successful. I drove in past 4 elderly security guards. I followed the hayride as soon as they opened the gate for the hayride. And dropped the rooster off with the 100 chickens. This is the last time I saw Juanito. And now I live with my wife in Los Angeles, and we are still raising chickens. And that's me and Juno and a new chicken there on top of the laptop. So we're still at it. All right, thanks everybody. I'm really
Absolutely. Give it one more time. Daniel Bowie, take it back. Danny's asked me to remind you that, like every good comedian, he has CDs for sale. Those of you in your early 20s. What a CD is, I want you to imagine a load of MP3s that have been frozen onto a tiny silver disc, and are therefore much more valuable than normal MP3s. So you should get in and get some of those. So that's the end of the chicken extravaganza that you've had tonight. There's 2 more jobs that we have to do. I'll do them in reverse order. The second job is that the Head and Chickens Theatre have just recently advised me that they have a dangerous excess of booze. Right, they've got so much booze that there's actually a problem where it might collapse into a critical mass and destroy the entire world. So what they've asked is that we go downstairs and we buy some of it and take it out of the pub safely in our tummies. Because the human tummy can protect from a critical mass of booze destroying the entire world. The thing we need to do before that is that we've seen some amazing chickeny people tonight, and what we're going to do is we're going to clap and cheer like crazy to show them one more time that we appreciate either the intellectual or the geographical or both distances that they've had to cross to take on this very weird night, all about how humans and chickens should get on really well together and have really close relationships. Oh, but we're going to fucking eat them all. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, please go wild. You've seen Kate Humble. You saw Martin Austwick. Right then, you saw Danny Nobel. This has been Live in the Chicken. The Being Human Festival is hereby declared over, which means that Michael Eads has no work to do for 6 months. So do be nice to him, ladies and gentlemen. I've been Steve Cross. Good night.